Hey guys, another video for our Healthcare in Japan playlist and our little mini series on hospital shenanigans in Japan. Today the topic is admission, so just going to give you guys a bit of an idea if you're going to be admitted to a hospital in Japan, what the experience is likely to be like. So it's pretty similar to the rest of the experience. It's really efficient. It's very similar to a production line type style of operation, so like a production line. Like a lot of the healthcare stuff is like that here. You would recognize that if you've seen the other videos about the dentists or about pretty well anything else with healthcare. The way it's done here is really efficient and just like a production line. Next. So in this case, usually it's the patient going from one place to the next to have the treatment, and again, really efficient, really quick, boom. In this case, for the admissions, you basically sit down and all the people come to you. So again, super efficient. So you go to the admissions department of the hospital and you wait for like 5-10 minutes. It's usually a short wait, and then you go in and sit at a desk, and the first person says, you know, hello, I'm so-and-so, I'm from the whatever department, and then starts asking questions, and they have forms, and they sit there and start filling out forms. And when that person's finishing asking their questions, they say thank you very much, and they stand up and they walk away, and then someone else appears almost straight away and sits down and says hello, I'm from. So the different people they had was, they had a nursing specialist who asked sort of body related questions, so you know, all sorts of all the usual questions that you'll get from a nurse. So, you know, the form was, you know, how many times a day do you pee? How many times a day do you go to the toilet? How many times a day? What do you normally eat? Just all sorts of sort of standard body hospital nursing type questions, you know, and they go through all that. And then there was another person who was the pharmacist, and the pharmacist's questions were all related to allergies. Do you have any drug allergies? Do you have any food allergies? What medications do you take? All that sort of usual pharmaceutical type shit questions. And so that was his thing. Really thorough, like lots and lots of questions. Lots of questions. And then there was actually an admissions person whose sort of specialty was like accommodation sort of thing. So that hospital has options. You can have a private room with your own toilet, or you can have a private room with a toilet and a shower, or you can just go in the general ward. And they don't actually give you a booking as such because it's a hospital, right? So you don't really know. You tell them what your first choice is and your second choice is, and then when you actually turn up on the day that you're going to be admitted, then they'll tell you what's available, and they'll put you into whatever's available as close as possible to what you requested. So of course, you know, your own room is going to cost you more money, your own room with a toilet's going to cost you more money, and your own room with a toilet and a bathroom is going to cost you more. So just as a matter of interest, guys, we have the government insurance, the government health insurance, like the state socialized medicine health insurance. That'll freak a few people out. Can't handle the word socialization. We have socialized healthcare from the government that we pay every year, but we also pay for private health insurance as well. It's a little bit more every year, and that covers the difference. So when you have hospitalization, or where you have something like that, the difference between the amount that the government will pay for you and what has to be paid is picked up by the private health insurance company. So we saw during this process, the admission process, they actually show you a piece of paper, and it shows on there how much an operation costs, how much hospital room costs, how much, all the details about what everything actually costs, and it's lots of zeros, right? As the same as in any country, you know, all that sort of stuff's really expensive. However, that's the total cost, and then because we have the healthcare now, the healthcare thing, we've talked about this on previous videos. The health insurance, the state health insurance, everyone in Japan is supposed to pay that. So there is a huge loophole there. It does seem that the government, there's a loophole between the foreigners registering in Japan and getting their ID cards, their foreigner registration cards, and paying tax and being signed into the health insurance system. So it does seem that there are a lot of foreigners in Japan who don't pay it. And by law everybody's supposed to pay it, and it's geared to your income. So if your income's really small, the amount of money that you'll have to pay a year is really small. But everybody has to pay it. But it does seem that the government does seem to miss catching the foreigners who don't pay it, because we know lots of people who don't. And it's pretty risky, because obviously if something goes wrong and you do need some major treatment, you know, it's mega bucks, same as in any other country, right? It's mega dollars, mega yen, huge amounts of money to get these things done. So, you know, this is one of those circumstances where paying into that government insurance is definitely worthwhile. And it's amazing how cheap everything is. You know, like we mentioned recently, a whole day of tests and MRIs and scans and X-rays and blood tests and, you know, consultations with surgeons and, you know, all that sort of stuff that went on and on and on, ended up costing Ichiman Sansen, which is about $130. So, you know, if you had to pay the full bill for that, it could be thousands of dollars, couldn't it? So, you know, it's really worth it if you're going to be here. If you're going to be here for a holiday, probably the best thing is just travel health insurance. Or if you've got private health insurance in your own country, that might cover you for when you travel. But it's definitely worth looking at, you know, if you're going to be traveling, because you don't know, you could take a wrong step on some ice somewhere and slip over and break a leg and get hospitalised. We had a friend of ours who slipped over in the ice, a snowboarding guy, and landed with his arms straight, and they actually had to hospitalise him for 6 weeks or something for a series of operations to put pins in his, because he just shattered his arm, and they had to put lots of pins in, and he had a series of operations, and he was hospitalised for at least 6 weeks. You know, and if something like that happened to you while you're here on holidays, if you didn't have a way to pay for it, they'd treat you. That's one good thing about Japan, is they don't, you know, whether you've got insurance or health insurance or whatever, they'll still treat you, but at the end of it they'll hand you a bill. And if you've got insurance, it's going to be a little bill. You know, if you've got Japan health insurance, if not, it's going to be a big bill. And of course, if you've got private health insurance in your own country that'll cover you while you're on holidays here, then you can take that big bill and claim it on your own health insurance, and you can get the money back. But you know, same as wherever you are in the world, isn't it? You know, whether you choose to have health insurance or not, it's the same risk, isn't it? So yeah, so the admissions thing. So we had the nurse who had the nursing questions. We had the pharmacist who had the pharmacist questions. We had the admissions person who had the bedding type questions. And oh yeah, a whole, just as with everything in Japan, there's always a pile of paper, right? There's always a big pile of paper, and there was lots and lots of questions, but there was also lots and lots of setsume, because setsume is really popular in Japan too, which is explanation. So there's lots of explanation about all sorts of stuff, and a big list of stuff that you need to bring with you when you go in. And in that list of stuff, well, some of the things was your own chopsticks, your own cup, your own bowl. And the reason is that what they do is they come into your room or come to your bed with a trolley, and they'll have a big pot of miso soup, and they'll take your bowl from you and scoop up miso soup and hand it back to you, or they'll take your bowl from you and fill it with rice and hand it back to you. Or so you've got to have your own stuff. You've got to have your own bowl and your own chopsticks and your own cup and your own towel, and then you've got to have a small towel, a hand towel, and a larger bath towel, and you've got to. And then the clothes question, there was a whole series of clothes questions, which was sort of funny, because, you know, the old fella's really big, right, the old guy. So what size? Oh, geez, that size. And you have to bring your own pajamas, right? So, of course, that's not unusual in a hospital, but there was a big discussion then about having the appropriate pajamas, because they have to be appropriate. You can't have the pajamas that are hard to access for them, or that they need a special type of pajama, right? So big discussion about that. And on the day of admission, they'll check your pajamas, they'll inspect your pajamas, and if they're not appropriate, they'll rent you hospital pajamas to suit that are appropriate for what they need to do to you. So typical, very typical of Japan's style of doing things, you know, with every little detail, very, very thorough on every little detail, you know, of your clothes, and then your underwear, how many pairs of underwear, and every little detail about what you need to bring with you. Questions about whether you want TV or not, instructions about not using your phone or putting your phone on manner mode. Just detail, pages and pages of detail. So, of course, this is a pretty good time to mention that, of course, everything's in Japanese, and because a lot of the time with things like this in Japan, if it's difficult topics or technical topics like this, you'll often get words that you haven't heard before, because just the nature of it. Unless you've been admitted to a hospital before, they're going to be using a lot of phrases and terms that you might not have heard before. So again, as with a lot of these things, you really either need to have a really good level of reading, be able to read and write Japanese really, really well, and communicate in Japanese really, really well, or you'll need to have somebody with you who can translate for you. And with a lot of these things, particularly when it comes to the medical stuff, they really want to know that you are understanding. So you really have to reassure them. If you're doing it yourself, you really have to reassure them that you do understand what they're saying, because you can see their concern when it's important things. The pharmacist guy asking his questions about the allergies and things like that, and you really have to reinforce back to them, yeah, look, I know what you're saying, no, I don't have any allergies, and you know, things like that. The surgeon too, of course, the surgeon's really concerned that you understand what they're saying, so you have to reassure them. And again, with the surgeon, there's papers to sign to agree to allow them to do this and do that, and explaining that you understand the situation and all that sort of stuff. That's all in Japanese too, of course. And then actually, those forms before admission, there's a big pile of forms that need to be filled out, and they require a hanko on them, so the stamp, our personal stamp. Usually if you don't have a hanko, usually you can just initial, but again, there was a lot of stuff there. So sometimes you can get away if you can't read really well, or if there's something you can't read there's some kanji you don't know, you can say to them, I'm sorry, what does this say? And they will tell you, and you go, oh, thank you very much, and then you can sign it. But quite often they don't like that. Another thing too that we would have mentioned on other videos about other things, usually when you have to fill out a form here, it's pretty usual that you have to do it yourself. So in a lot of countries, if there's a form to be filled out, it's possible for another person to do it for you, and then at the end you just sign it, right? That's not unusual, is it? You know, when you're buying a house or buying a car or agreeing to something like this, some sort of contract, it's not a problem, is it, in a lot of countries, that someone else complete the thing and then you just sign the bottom. However, here they do have a funny thing about doing it yourself. They really want you to write your name and address and phone number and all that sort of stuff. They want you to do it yourself. They do seem to think that's important, and quite often they won't let you have someone else do it, and they won't do it. We mentioned it once before about a bank, a pedantic bank that wanted all these forms filled out and just wouldn't do it. You know, look, can you do it for us? No, we can't. You got to do it yourself. And you know, look, my Japanese writing's really, really bad. You might not be able to read it. Oh, they didn't care. They just wanted, you know, they wanted the customer to do it. So you just got to do it yourself. And the hospital stuff can be a bit like that too. So again, tricky. But don't panic. The reason for these videos is because one of the biggest concerns some people have, we know some of the people who watch a lot of our videos, and some of our Patreon supporters, we know a couple of people that have medical issues that are pretty major and have some concerns about healthcare in Japan, and they're the ones we know about. So we know there'll be more of you that have medical concerns that are worried about coming to Japan and haven't publicly talked about it, which is fair enough. But we know there's people watching this video that are concerned about this topic, and that's why we're making this video. It's not to freak anybody out with how complex it is. It's just to let you know what it's like. So if you find yourself in a situation where you need to face it, I mean, you really do have a choice. There was something a video we made recently, and someone said, oh, it was about the drugs. It was about the drugs, the prescription drugs, and somebody said, what if you've got a prescription, what if you need a prescription drug that, you know, for your life, like it's, you know, without the drug your life's threatened, and it's illegal in Japan, what would you do then? Turns out that dude was just asking a hypothetical question, but the advice to him was, well, you might want to think about not coming, and that's sort of what we're thinking with these videos is, if you know the deal, if you know that when you come to Japan and you need hospitalization or you need to deal with the healthcare system, if you know what the experience is likely to be like for you, then you can decide for yourself. If you decide to come, you might think, oh, okay, I could deal with that, and then you decide to come. At least you know what you're getting yourself into. If you listen to these videos and you go, oh, I couldn't cope with that, well, then probably better off not to come, because this is what it's likely to be like. So, however, it's really, really positive. Like the actual experience itself, we'll just let these people go past behind us. The actual experience itself was not unpleasant, and it was not difficult. And the people we've talked about before about there being a lack of compassion in Japan. There can be, you know, there was a circumstance this week where they were trying to find a vein to put a drip into, and couldn't find a vein, and just kept pushing this needle deeper and deeper into the arm and saying, oh, gomen there, and gembare. And there are times like that where you do definitely feel that they do expect you to take a bit of pain here, you know, and quite often, and Japanese people are so patient when it comes to taking pain that they'll just quietly take it. So there is, you know, there is that. However, when it comes to this sort of stuff, they are exceptionally, most of the medical healthcare people are exceptionally kind and supportive, and the service is amazingly impressive. You know, that the admission day was just walk down to the admission area, and because the other staff that send you to there show you a little map, go down to here and over here, and it's the, you know, window number 5, and you go down there and you give them your piece of paper and they say, okay, you know, one moment please, and really a couple of minutes later it's like, okay, come in here please, and sit down here please, and I'm so and so, and my job's to look after this, and then, you know, do you mind if I ask you some questions? And they sit there and fill out the form. And then they're really thorough, really efficient. The setsime thing, the explanation thing's a bit long, but it's efficient, you know, and they're making sure they're being thorough. That's always the way in Japan. Everyone wants to be really thorough. Sometimes to the point that it's a bit pedantic, but you know, they're being thorough, and that's a good thing with healthcare, right? And then, okay, and then that person would stand up and literally walk out of the room, and literally straight away the next person will come and sit down and say, right, I'm so and so, and I'm here from, you know, to look after this, and I've got some questions, and off they go, and then the next one. And it was a huge pile of paper, and it was a million questions, but there was no sitting waiting. It was just next page, next question, and it was probably about an hour or so. So quite a thing, but really efficient. No time was wasted, and everybody was really polite and really pleasant and really nice and really understanding and caring and kind and in a good humour about it, you know. Sort of, you do get a bit of, can get a little bit of a banter. Not a lot of chatting goes on, but the fact that you're a foreigner can have a bit of a novelty value, and you know that you need the 5L size hospital pajamas is a bit of a giggle, and it's quite a pleasant experience. So the Japanese part of it, the actual language part of it, is the challenging bit with all this stuff, because there's constant terminology you haven't heard before, and questions that are difficult questions and things like that. So that part of it's quite challenging, but the actual human part of it is quite good. And again, with all these sort of bureaucratic type things, you've just got to be really patient. You know, you've got to be a patient, and you've just got to accept that they're just being thorough. And of course, the upside of this is a lot of those questions about your clothes and your food and all that sort of stuff goes on and on and on, and that's not really a safety issue or that important. But again, if the culture, if the medical profession culture is to be really thorough, that's a good thing, right? It's sort of reassuring. If they're about to cut you open and be messing with your organs, then it's sort of reassuring to know that they're being really thorough and really careful. So, oh yeah, another thing, did we mention in the last video, may or may not have, every step of the process, every time someone talks to you, they'll look at your piece of paper that has your name and date of birth on it, and they'll ask you your name and your date of birth. Everybody does it. Every person you speak to does it. And it's that checking thing, same as the train drivers in Japan. And it's that checking thing, making sure that there's no mistake, that they're talking to the person they think they're talking to. And when you're the only foreigner in the hospital, it's pretty funny, because there's not going to be too many people with the same last name as the old guy, you know, and so it's sort of fairly obvious. But again, it's part of their routine. So every time you sit down, they'll say, "What's your name and date of birth, please?" And you have to tell them your name and date of birth. They go, "Thank you very much," and then off they go with their bit. And the same with the admission thing. Every person that sat down, first question, "What's your name and date of birth?" And they look at the paper and they listen to what your answer is, and they go, "Right, we've got the right person," and then off they go and they start talking. So it's just making sure they haven't made a mistake. You know, some of you might remember a few years ago, we went through the admission and the operation thing process once before, and they are every step, every nurse that comes and touches you, or every time someone comes into your room or comes to your bed and talks to you, they'll ask you your name and date of birth. And when you get taken to the operation room for the operation itself, when they actually wheel you into the room, the first question they ask is, "What's your name, what's your date of birth, and you're here for," and they say what you're there for and which side and all this sort of stuff, and just to make sure that they've got the right person and they're about to do the right surgery to the right person. So again, that's cool, right? That's really cool. That's reassuring to know that they're being really thorough like that. So yeah, as far as the admission process is concerned, yep, take a big bag of patience with you, so that you can sit there and patiently answer their questions. Again, with the bureaucracy, you just have to be patient and polite, and remember that all the silly questions they're asking you, they must ask you. So there's no point in getting frustrated or irritated, and when you're sick, it's hard, you know, if you're in any sort of pain or if you're suffering and people are asking you 6 million silly questions, and quite often they overlap, which means that you might get asked the same question by half a dozen people in a day here. It's quite possible, and you just have to keep answering and just be patient and just understand that it's just their system, and that they have to ask these questions, and that they're just doing what they're supposed to do, and you just have to be patient and go with it, you know. And so yeah, be patient, try and stay as relaxed and as polite and calm and so on as you can. Allow lots of time. I mean, it'd be hard to imagine a hospital anywhere in the world, or a healthcare system anywhere else in the world, more efficient than in Japan. There's almost no waiting. It's absolutely amazing. It's amazing how they manage to do it. You know, everything that you do, every step, there's almost no waiting. You know, you get sent off for a scan or sent off for a test or something, and you walk in and it's only a couple of minutes and they're going, "Right, your turn." So how'd you do that? There's all these people in the waiting room, but nobody's waiting very long. Everybody's getting drawn in, done, sent out, next. Just really super efficient. So, you know, it's while it requires some patience because of a lot of the faffing that goes with it, there's not a lot of sitting around. There's no patience required sitting around unnecessarily. There's almost none of that. It's just next, and it's all done. So it's amazingly efficient. Hard to imagine a system anywhere in the world that could be more efficient as far as no waiting for anything. Next test, next room, and they've got amazing systems where you finish in one place and they go, "Right, now you need to go down here, turn left, you know, window number 7, and go down there, no waiting, next, okay, next, and just really efficient. Again, it's like that production line thing, really efficient. So again, it's good, guys. It really is. There's these difficult things. We want to tell you the difficult things about the experience, about the hospitalisation experience. It's important we tell you that, but at the same time, the overall experience is very reassuring. If you've got the right insurance, it's very cheap. It's latest technology. It's really good. It's really good. So yeah, we don't want to put anyone off. This is just trying to give you the big picture. We're going to try and give you the big picture, so we'll tell you the good and the bad, and there's a bit of each. But overall, it's really good. It is really good. They're pretty good. So the next step's actually a meeting with the anaesthetist. So that'll be an anaesthetist. Next is a meeting with the anaesthetist. That might be interesting. So we might end up making a video about that too. But this is an ongoing process, guys. There'll be lots of this. More videos coming soon.